Welcome to The Business of Family, the podcast where we explore the stories, challenges, and opportunities of family businesses. I'm your host, Tammy Buss, and I'm a family business survivor and also a family business advisor. In this show, we will be talking with family business leaders and experts to bring you insights and inspiration so you too can survive your family business journey. Whether you're a founder, a successor, a professional, or just curious about family businesses, this podcast is for you. Today, we're rewinding the tape and bringing you one of our most impactful conversations from the past. These are the episodes that started it all: foundational stories, powerful insights, and timeless lessons from families in business, experts in the field, and leaders who've shaped the way we think about legacy. Whether you're tuning in again or hearing it for the first time, there's always something to take away. So let's hit play on today's Legacy on Repeat. So welcome.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here.
That's great. Thank you. So, we've been doing a few podcasts together because, of course, we work together.
Mutual shared interest in these assessments.
Yes. Yeah. Families, teams, businesses. Assessments, I think, are the main focus of everything, and relationships, business and family. And the two we use primarily are Print and Colby. And back a few podcasts ago, we did one on communication. We briefly touched on Print and Colby, and then we did a Colby one. And now we're going to do a Print one because people want to hear more and more about these assessments. Yeah. So just to give a recap on Print, do you want to give a 2-second recap on
2 seconds?
2 seconds
okay.
on what Print is? That's my 3 fact find.
Yes.
I want a 2-second summary.
Yeah. So Print is your unconscious motivators. So it's your why you do things. It's, under the surface, it's only what you feel and experience. It's not necessarily what people see. So you only know why you're doing what you do. But even then, until you do Print, sometimes it's hard to articulate that. So that's where...
You know what? I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I looked at the 9 unconscious motivators and I thought, oh, no, that's me. And when I actually did the assessment years ago, I'm like, oh, that's really me. Because we all, I think with any assessment, we have everything, right? We have a little bit of everything. We're put together with a bits of this and bits of that. But what is the leading reason that we do things? Or what is the underlying reason? And I think when it's underlined, you don't truly understand that's what it is. And I think that's why we use these assessment tools when we're working with the businesses and particularly families. I started working with the families doing Print and Colby.
Which is so smart.
Because you know what? It's if you're in a family business, you have family and you have the business. And, when you mesh them together, they're very complex. And there's a lot of noses out of joint. There's a lot of underlying tension and stress. And so we really like to use assessment tools with families, and it opens up the conversation so they understand who they are at the beginning before we start delving into the issues that are underlying. So maybe you can start by just reviewing the 9 different unconscious motivators in Print.
For sure. So every report, there's going to be a major and a minor motivator. And in total, that gives you like 72 different combinations of these 9 prints. So 1 is for things to be perfect, correct, and right. 2 is to be needed and appreciated. 3 is to succeed and achieve. 4 print is to be special and find meaning in life. 5 is to be knowledgeable and smart. 6 is to be safe and secure. A 7 print is to enjoy life and be happy. 8, is to be strong and self-reliant. And a 9 is to have peace and harmony. And I want to say, don't take all of these at face value, because I think, like you said, you read all of these like, oh, I'm that. But when you look at the report and you see best self and shadow behavior, but I think what it comes down to is that trigger report.
Yes. The triggers are
that's when it becomes so apparent, like there's no way I could be anything else because this is so triggering. Just reading these.
When I look at the surface and I don't really understand each one, I thought I was, for things to be perfect, correct, and right. I don't know why, I'm not that, but I'm like, oh, that's me. And, to be special and find meaning in life. Cause that's kind of a happy person. Like, I'm all of them. And when I found out that I was, to be strong and self-reliant and then to succeed and achieve. And when you dig deep into those, you go, absolutely. And so do you want to talk just a little bit about each one, or should we give an example? Why don't we give an example of what happens? I love the glass.
Yeah.
The glass.
Yeah.
So picture this, there's a table and there's a glass on the edge of the table. So think of that in your mind. There's a table, there's a glass of water. It's at the edge of the table and you have 9 different prints and 9 different underlying motivations to move it.
Yeah.
Or it gets moved by someone. So let's talk about the underlying motivation to move it. Cause you're like, well, you just moved it because you moved it, but did you move it because you moved it?
Right.
Why did you move it?
Right. And here's the thing. This is why it's unconscious, is because you don't necessarily recognize that you're moving it for that reason. You're just moving it. But I'm a 2 major, you're 8. And then we have Nicole here who's a 6. So as a 2, to be needed and appreciated basically means I want to help. So Tammy looks thirsty. I'm going to move the water closer to Tammy so she can have some water. I'm not thinking about, it's going to fall on the floor. I'm thinking, she looks thirsty. So I want to help, to be needed and appreciated. Nicole, being a 6, is to be safe and secure. So she sees that water at the edge of the table. She's like, if that falls, that's going to interrupt the meeting, or it's going to spill on the computer, or it's going to cause chaos or whatever. And she wants it to be somewhere where it is safe and secure. And as for you, with your 8, you're moving it away from the edge of the table because no one else will. Or at least that's what you think. You're like, well, no one else is going to do it. I'll do it. So we all have our different unconscious motivations for why we've done something, and it's not obvious to everyone.
No, and I found that to be fascinating, because once you start to dig into each print and their motivation, their reason they do things, when people are really happy, and then, what happens or what triggers them. So one of the key words in print is triggers. So when something is not done, it triggers you to behave in a certain way. So do you want to take an example through an example of a trigger, whether it be for you or myself or Nicole?
I feel like we should pick on someone that's not here,
Oh, okay. Who would you like to pick on?
Well, let's pick on a 7, to enjoy life and be happy. If someone who is a major 7 print and you come at them with just bad news right out the gate, and their whole thing is like, how am I going to make this day amazing? And like, how are we going to have fun? And like, I always want to do something that's going to make everyone happy. Right. So if we come at them with some immediately bad news, not even like a hi or hello, immediately, I'm like, we're not having fun today. Or like, they're not going to want to, go do this thing, or I have to deal with something really serious. And when someone gets triggered by that, they feel almost backed into a corner, almost like a dog or a cat, kind of backed into a corner with their hackles up, and suddenly they're kind of like all spiky, and you're getting their worst kind of self. And so, they can get almost angry at the situation when they feel like their motivation is being attacked. So if they can't be happy, then they're going to go kind of this other route.
Can you pull them out? How can you pull them out of that?
I think again, this comes back to like that awareness of the team. If it's in the office or at home or whatever, of just understanding, hey, like, what's going on? Or be like, hey, I recognize that I might have triggered you by saying XYZ or doing XYZ. I think it's a conversation, but again, it's awareness.
So how would you know? So someone's really bubbly and they're always the happy person, and and they want to find, they just want to be happy. So you've come at them with some bad news, which is not the way to approach someone who's a 7. What are some of the traits that would show them? So they're backed into a corner, their hackles are up. How would they go from that? How can you tell they go from that happy bubbly to the
more drawn in? I've seen it with some 7s where they almost just get fine, if we're going to be serious about this, we're going to be serious about this. And they don't get to have that kind of excitement bubble up. So it's almost that they just go like, hyper the other way. Again, it comes back to some of that communication stuff around body language, like the arms cross, their brows furrow, and they're just a little more huffy. At least that's for, example of a 7 print. I've worked with one more recently, and that's like something I see, and I have to be careful to always say no or not always say no. Like I got to feed into the ideas a little bit.
Yeah. And some of the, and we use these in the office so we can tell when someone's called in shadow, when something's been happening and they're not quite right. And you say, okay, you're in shadow. What's happened? And, for you take, for example, to be perfect, correct, and right. These are people who really like to have, the presentation completely finished, right? To have all the I's dotted, the T's crossed, and it's ready to hand off. And, if you come at them and ask for it 2 hours ahead of time.
And they're rushing. And, now they're negative. They're, what are some of the other traits you get with that? When, and again, it might only be an hour, but you've just not, you've triggered them in that they're not ready to hand something over. It might be finished, but they were just not ready to hand it over. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just it might be the comments of like, oh, well, now people are going to think that I don't know how to spell, or I don't, like sometimes it's just like the editing parts of, paper or whatever presentation that you're giving. It's just like it's not finessed to the degree that they would like, and so there might be some. I almost want to defer here for a second because I see Nicole. She's got her one minor. I won't. Don't worry. The dissatisfaction of not being able to put their best foot forward, and it really takes a toll.
Grumpy.
It takes a toll on their psyche. I mean, I think that's anyone. That's why it's like a trigger. Is it like? How it shows up could be slightly different, but ultimately I think we can cover it with like they're grumpy.
So, you see this in work, but this is really prevalent in families, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really easy to trigger in a family. Yeah. And, particularly, if you look at twos.
What are you saying, Tammy?
I would say I've worked with twos. Twos are to be needed and appreciated. Yeah. And they really want to help, right? Yeah. That's what as you do, you really want to help people. But from my experience dealing with twos, they're happy to help. They don't need to be front and center. They're just happy to help and lift you up. They're great managers, right? They're those people who will help and propel you and accelerate you in your role.
They're a cheerleader.
They are. But the minute you don't appreciate or give them credit for any of the help they've given, what happens to you?
I believe one of the terms is martyr-like.
Yes.
The one I have to watch out for myself is passive aggressiveness. That's when I know I've been triggered, is when I'm about ready to say something that's passive aggressive. I'm like, oh, no. That's not appropriate. That is a reaction. That's not a response.
Yeah.
And that's when I have to step back and think about, okay, this is not them trying to upset me. This is them doing what they do. And it just happens to be a trigger for me.
What we don't spend enough time on, and I think we really should, is understanding ourselves, but understanding the other members of the family and what does trigger them. Because what triggers you doesn't trigger me, and vice versa. And I think, we've had examples, we always talk about it at the office about, oh, I can't believe I just said this. And it, the reaction was this, that's not what I meant. This is my husband constantly. That's what I said, but that's not what I meant.
Right.
And
then just say what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. But there's some kind of, they want to massage it or somehow make it different. And so how do you see this working and playing out in a family situation, understanding your unconscious motivators?
So is this family in the business or family at home?
Well, I think there's both, right? Yeah. Because when you overlay a family and they're in business, so you have some people working in the business, some people not working in the business, and there's different dynamics because you treat people differently at work than you do at home.
Well,
and
hopefully.
And the ones you're closest to are the ones you really, you go after, right? You tend not to have a stranger you treat much better, I think, in a lot of cases than you treat your family.
Yeah, that sense of familiarity with your family definitely kind of breaks down a lot of the barriers that you might have or boundaries you have with strangers or other colleagues that aren't family.
So you've got a big family and you've got quite a diverse, prints in your family. So, how does that played out with your communication, because you've also done Colby with your family. So once you layer the two of them, it makes it much simpler. But if you were to take the Colby out and just look at a couple of prints. How does that change the, Easter table or, Thanksgiving dinner and the Canada Day parties?
Yeah. Well, my mom is a 7/9 print, and that's very evident because she, when she goes to cook dinner or make snacks for people, whatever, she doesn't want people in the kitchen because it's part of what brings her joy is like, I can provide for my family. They can all have fun because her thing is, I want to have fun and enjoy life. So if my family's fun and enjoying life, so am I. And then her 9 to have peace and harmony is like, everyone's fed. We're all happy. There's no hangriness here.
Well, what's interesting is you talk about your mom being a 7 and making dinner. So I'm an 8 and I make dinner alone in my kitchen. I don't want anybody in the way.
Different motivation though.
Absolutely. And these are the things you think about why it's so different, that I don't want anybody in my kitchen because I can just do it myself. It's easier for me to do it myself than to have people in my way.
Yeah.
And, in our house, we've been in our house for over 30 years and, we've made lots of changes. But the one thing I've not done is to open up my kitchen to be able to other people to see. I'm in the kitchen. My kitchen is my domain. Get out of my kitchen. Nobody's allowed in my kitchen. They, stay out. I will bring it out to you, and don't do the dishes. Just leave it alone. I'll do it myself because I can load the dishwasher myself better.
Did you see this at work too?
Yeah. I'm very much, for me, is I just need to get it done myself.
Right.
And it's, and I see this at work with my son, who I work with, my husband, who I worked with for a long time. My husband was in that sort of middle management where you get jammed from, the corporate level.
Yeah.
And then you get jammed by, the people that
reporting in.
Yeah. And there's not everybody can do that role. And his peace and harmony is the one to sort of bridge that gap of, basically he's in the middle, he's getting squeezed from both ends. Right.
And he can handle it.
Right. Because he's just trying to appease everybody. He doesn't want chaos. He just wants everybody. And he's like a very
let's all get
level, doesn't get riled up, where I'm like, if I was on a scale, it'd be like, I'd be a 10 down to a -10, up to a 30 down. Like I'm all up and down and all around. Yeah. Right. Just from my personality and also my Colby.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me a little bit more about how to use print in, whether it be in a family situation or a home situation. What is the advantage to using this tool? Because it's the unconscious motivators, and we're really used to the personality ones, which are like the DISC and Myers-Briggs are personality, and they change over time. Right. Yeah. But the two assessment tools that we use are Colby and print, and you take them once in your life and you never take them again. Yeah. Because these are embedded in you from early on. I think you're about 12, when you can start to take these.
Colby's grade 4 reading level. And then, I think print is kind of around the same.
Yeah. So what's that, 9, 10, somewhere in there, right? So these are embedded right in your DNA. It's who you are and it doesn't change. And I found this particularly true when I looked at my print, my Colby. Yes and no, because how you do things as a kid, you don't really think about how you do things. But when I looked at my print assessments, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so me. I have been this way since I was little and didn't really understand it. And that was one of my aha moments, was really understanding the underlying, because like you said before with the iceberg, there's only a small part at the top
that people see.
And that small part of the top is that personality, right? That's the personality. That's the feeling. That's
people see, the motivations, what you like. Yeah.
The smarts, the IQ. Yes, I'm an MBA. Yes, I'm a lawyer. And, my personality is such, that I like you. But when you get down deeper, that's when these things start to come forward, which play a big role in hiring, diversifying your management teams. But truly understanding not only your family, but the in-laws, right? Everybody, because you do have that dynamic is when you bring in outsiders, like you might have learned to get along with each other because you're family and you go, well, just don't talk about that to him because, he's this or don't do that. Yeah. But we don't really realize there's triggering. We don't really know what triggers other than maybe a topic triggers. So tell me a little bit more about these triggering and the family dynamics.
Yeah. It is a hard one when there's no one, or I should say no, when not everyone has their print. And it's hard to guess. Like I totally guessed wrong from my mom.
Yeah.
And like, I think I know her better than most people, but apparently not. So using print with the family, I mean, again, it is not our job to manage other people's triggers, but it is helpful for us to know what could trigger them and the response we might get when that happens. So with anything, I feel like, yes, it's helpful for me, but it's even more helpful when I know other people. And with families, especially, I mean, it comes back a lot of times to conflict and how to navigate that. And, you know, when talking with my parents or siblings or niece or nephews, just being able to use the right phrasing to help them understand what you're trying to say, rather than just like going into my shadow self and being passive aggressive and saying something that maybe won't be received well.
And you know, what's interesting is, you know, understanding yourself. I mean, it's really important that you understand other people, particularly if you're working close and you've got a good team and diversified people on the team, so that you're getting the best results for the company. But understanding your own and what triggers you, I think, is important, because my youngest son, can push a button by looking at me. You know, it's one of those.
Are you guys the same?
Oh, we have a couple of the same traits. Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We have a couple on the Colby, and we're both a 3 in the print.
Yeah.
But understanding the trigger points has diffused the explosions
Amazing.
that happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, when you're in a business, in a family business, you know, as you know, 30% of family businesses transition. The other 70 don't. And I don't think it's because they don't choose to. I think it's because they don't think they can work with their family. I think you mentioned this yourself.
Yeah.
You didn't think you could work with your dad. Now, if you were to back this up and had done Print and Colby for you and your dad back when you were exploring this, do you think it would have changed your decision?
It might have. It definitely might have. I mean, he's so respected for what he does, and he would have been an amazing person to learn from. And I think understanding, especially the triggers and the prints, and knowing that we take action slightly differently, I think that would have helped give us a better understanding of how we both approach work and why both works and not either one of us is right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big learning curve for me in a family business, is having my husband in the business sort of over to the side. Like, we didn't work together. We were in the same industry, and I did report to him from a compliance standpoint, but I was actually in my own lane.
Yeah.
And then my son is now fully ensconced in the business that I transitioned.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, you're having a hard time, because they're not you, but you know from their print, you know from their Colby, they're not you. And it makes it easier to deal with. It doesn't make it, I mean, you still want them to be you, because you built the business and they're not managing it the way you did, or they're not growing it the way you did. But understanding their motivation is different. So you might say, well, it's because of their education or their age, or you have to let them be them. But there's so many other layers. And I think using the Print and Colby was the big, you know what, I get this. And had I done it earlier with them, it's one of this podcast series, and what we do is all about trying to prevent all the mistakes that I made trying to transition my business. And I didn't do Print and Colby early enough with the family.
Right.
Did it with work. We've been running it, like I said, for about 13 years. However, it only recently started to use it with the family, which made a big difference in my, you can say, your tolerance level, because of who I am and because of who they are. They understand why I do what I do now. They don't like it any more than they did before. Yeah. But they understand I'm not going to change. Yeah. So when you say to someone they're not going to change, it's not because they don't want to change. It's like built in your DNA. And once you realize this by looking at your Print or your Colby, you go, well, I'm born like that. Yeah. Yes, I can form different habits, but at the spur of the moment, who's going to come out is who I am.
Yep.
You know,
it's innate, it's built in. It's just, you don't think about it.
What is that? Who doesn't change their stripes? A tiger doesn't change their stripes.
Mm-hmm. A leopard doesn't change his spots.
Yes, yes. So, I mean, I think that's important, right? So when you're working with, because you've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs over the years, once they've started to use these 2 assessments, have you seen the change in their business or their family relationships?
Yes. It definitely gives insights. I mean, with the entrepreneurs I was working with, quite often I was working with the parent and the child was new to the business. And so I would say, do you have their Colby? Do you have their print? And let me break it down for you why they might not be approaching it the same way as you. And once they understand that to a certain degree, I mean, I still think they need to sit with it for a while, but once they understand it, it brings this next level of, okay, we can still achieve what we want to achieve, but they're going to do it differently. And it doesn't mean my way is right. And it doesn't mean their way is wrong. And I think that has a huge impact for the generation that's coming in. If the parent / owner of the family business suddenly starts leading with, we want you to be in your best self. And here's how we can help build the business around that. So when I transition out, you're running it your way to your strengths.
Mm-hmm. And I think, again, what's important is understanding the others around you, but not a once and done, box tick, did the Colby, did the print.
No.
I know that, like I said, I've been using this for a long time, but originally we just did them. And it's like, okay, here's who you are. Here's your number. Yeah. Oh, you're a quick start. Oh, you're a fact finder. And that's really not who you are. There's a lot of pieces that go along with it. But once you work on it and you talk about it and you review it, it becomes second nature.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why it's good to always revisit it. Call us. We'll do another interpretation.
Absolutely.
We'll go deep. We'll do exercises to help it really sink in.
Yeah. And that's, again, one of the reasons I, changing careers from being in the financial services industry for so long to working with first and second generation businesses is to do this and to say there is a lot of tools out there. We spend a lot of money doing things that we don't follow up on. And my role is to now get people to not only do these assessments to, make their business more profitable, bring in those kids if you want, change that from 30% to maybe 32% or something, is to really help the first generations because we don't understand what we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, I think we've probably given them enough information to totally mess them up on print today. But as you know, we always try to end the podcast with what is your words of wisdom? What is your takeaway? What is your takeaway from today?
Like I said with Colby, just do it.
Good advice. Thanks, Brett, for coming in again.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we're going to do this again.
Wait.
I love having you as a co-host.
So nice.
This is amazing. Thank you
so much, Tammy.
If you like this episode, subscribe to the Business of Family podcast on your favorite listening platform. You can also find Blue Roots on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. On the next show, I'll be back with another amazing guest who will inspire you with their family business insights. Until then, take care and keep it in the family. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, tax, investment, or insurance advice. Before acting on any advice, please contact your personal or company advisors.